welcome to the Gretatude Show. I have today a very special guest. Thank you so much, Nebulous Niang, for joining me here today for a chat. You are an amazing stand-up comic, and you've been killing it. And everybody should know you've had a double life. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your rise, your meteoric rise in comedy?
Well, first of all, hi Greta, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. It's actually the first podcast I've ever done, so you're making me lose my virginity here.
I'm honored. I'm honored.
Yeah. Um, I just thought I should also let the audience know how we met. So we both
Yes.
met doing stand-up comedy as well. And, the moment I saw Greta perform, I was so drawn to her and I knew that we had to talk and we would have a lot of things in common. And indeed, here we are.
Yes, and likewise, thank you for being like the guiding light, telling me, I'm so green when I came out and you told me, okay, this is where you should go. This, these are the show you should do, and got me really connected with an amazing community of people. So thank you for your generosity, kindness, and supporting women comedians. I'm so glad that I get to speak to you because when I germinated this idea of the Gratitude Show, you were right next to me. Like, like I was like there and then under my breath going, I think I'm gonna do this. I want to interview you. Can I interview you? And you were like, yeah. So thank you. You have a 1 hour special. I'm gonna get straight into this. All right. It's called Slow Mo Sexual. I think it's incredible how you started as on open mic and literally maybe you can take us to the journey of how you got to build a 1 hour special. And Slow Mo Sexual also dives into your journey of self-discovery. How did leaving your marriage, I'm going to put this in the open because you talk about it in your show, and embracing your true identity as a lesbian influence your comedy, right? There's so many like truth bombs happening just in that one question. And I love it. I'll unpack that.
Okay, so yeah, that's a long question. I think maybe I'll start with the comedy question. So I haven't been doing stand-up for all that long. I started maybe 2.5 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago. And from the time that I started till the time I had my 1 hour comedy special, Slow Mo Sexual, it was about like maybe 1.5 years, which is actually pretty fast, I think, all things considered. But I realized that the material comes naturally because it was all bubbling inside me and just waiting to come out. So it's more like my skills just needed to like level up that quickly to get to a place where I could confidently present a 1 hour comedy special product. Um, yeah, and it's really been a great journey. I'm a completely different person than when I first started comedy and much better for it, I think. Like, I think at the start of my comedy journey, I could not have imagined, with going on the internet like now and talking about being a lesbian or like even leaving my marriage and stuff like that. But in a way, I think that's the beauty of it because I know that by being able to tell my story and in a compelling enough way, I hope to be able to, inspire people not to leave their marriages necessarily, but more like to inspire people to do things which maybe they haven't quite managed to bring themselves to do, which would be good for them. Yeah.
Can you show us that poster you have of Slow Sexual? That is
I
an
would be very happy to.
amazing poster when I first saw it.
This is what I sleep next to every night.
Oh, rainbow. That's a snail,
So
isn't it? On your
yes, it's a
it's your spirit animal.
yes, so slow mo sexual. Like I think I have to give Steph Dogfoot the credit for like the idea behind this poster, because I also my other friend Judith Huang who's the author of a book of several books for the title Slow Mo Sexual. So the idea was I wanted a single word to
Mm.
encapsulate what the whole story would be about. So slow-mo sexual works. Before that, I was working on some kind of really artsy-fartsy title like Tendencies, which would have been like a bit more sus. So anyway, so there was the title
That
slow-mo.
every movie tendency.
I know, right? Like, and then there'll be black and white, grayscale poster and be like,
Very
um,
clever. Very
yeah. So and
clever.
then yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Steph Dogfoot came up with the idea of like a rainbow snail, like maybe sitting on my head or something. Actually, she wanted a big rainbow snail with me like crawling out of it. But then I figured my face would need to be bigger because I just want to show people like I am who I am and
Mm,
like I'm here to tell my story. So
mm.
and then my daughter actually helped me to Photoshop everything. So
Wow.
I'm very happy with this post and I'm
Oh,
very proud of it.
you're a mother of two children. I
Yes, that's right.
mean,
Two girls.
two girls, yes. And that adds a whole nother dimension to your comedy as well. I gotta say, from personal experience, I obviously love watching you because I feel that you have such power when you're on stage. You come across as super relatable, but the things that come out of your mouth doesn't match your face. So the shock value is like 100% there. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's really part of your magic and your special power, you know?
Well, what does my face look like? I'm
Your
gonna say
face
first. What's
looks
what
like
my face?
you could be a librarian, but the dirtiest shit will come out from you, and they'll be like, "What?" And the identity of having like two girls and being, mom, being a mom. But that aside, it's and that's why I'm trying to explore here because comedy and pain, in your own life is pretty closely tied to that journey of you coming out of your shell. Even I see it as you know Nebulous looking at the world, going, "Can I do this?" and then giving herself permission. So it must be tumultuous. We talk about divorce and we're laughing about it, but how has comedy helped you heal from your past, especially after leaving? And you've mentioned this, an abusive marriage.
Yeah. Well, the stand-up comedians, you always like to joke, right? That when we go on stage, we do it because we couldn't afford therapy. So the stage time is the therapy. And it is true. It is true, right? Um, and to me, the value in it is when you do comedy, you're like forcing yourself to see the silver lining amidst the misfortune rather than dwell on the negative parts of it, right? And in a way, that it forces you to kind of like not take life so seriously, even when it's asking you to. It's basically pushing you through a lot of shit, right? And you're like, but that was kind of funny. It
Yeah.
like it kind of forces you to do that. And
Mm,
to me, well, maybe take it back a few steps.
yeah.
Even before my midlife crisis, I've always been inclined towards humor I mean, not so overtly, but looking back, like even when I was a kid, I was always like, trying to be the funny one in class, writing jokes and telling people jokes, writing funny stories. When I was in secondary school, I actually drew a web comic. I drew a comic and I uploaded it to the web, which at the time was new, like the internet was new. And I did this comic for a few years. It was called The New Adventures of Bobbin, and it was just based on my teenage life, me talking to my ideal self. It was all very like my own way of dealing with my teenage angst. And like, looking back, like I've always looked to humor or tried to find ways to entertain people in the midst of like grappling with my own understanding of myself or lack of. And then when I was a bit older, I also tried to get into like drawing caricatures. So not drawing serious portraits, but like drawing caricatures of people. So yeah, I feel like the only thing that really changed was that now with the outlet being stand-up comedy, it was a very different form than what I was used to, because stand-up is just like undeniably like in your face and right now and live feedback, right? Not like just like writing a story or like uploading a comic to the internet and like, typing stuff. So it was more like I felt like my whole life had fallen apart, and I just like been through a lot of shit, and
Mm.
I mean, it couldn't be much worse by going up on stage, right? And I think my everything just kind of came together at that moment for me to like try stand up. Yeah.
And what was that turning point? Because you are going through divorce, you're going through like a monumental kind of milestone in your life. And was it at the height of the divorce? Was it the I don't know how long the whole process took, but when did you realize it was time for you to change your life and embrace who you are? And by that I mean like I don't think people know to step up on stage and tell everyone jokes about your shit. It's pretty scary, right? And then to
Yeah.
do like when was it that you decided, okay, I'm going to go and give this a go?
So, well, it wasn't like in the heat, like, or in the depth of my misery that I tried stand up. So I think even the whole process of realizing that I needed to leave that relationship, it took a while. Yeah, and I think I do use the term abusive marriage, which, it took me a while to even have the courage to use that term because I think it conjures up notions of like physical violence. But as I mentioned in my special, that there wasn't really any physical violence. It just felt like emotional violence. So it took me a while to even uh, have the courage to use that term for myself. And even then, now my perspective on it is evolving, and I'm thinking it did indeed feel abusive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it was intended to be abusive. And I'm just trying to still work through my feelings on that. And I'm also
Mm.
wondering if there's an aspect where, like, if I keep on using this term, for me at least, it I almost feel like it also takes a bit of power away from myself, in the sense that I don't want to keep telling this story where it seems like I'm the victim and I had no control. I mean, for me, that's how I'm trying to see it now. But anyway, um,
Anyway, I think that is really good point because you would not be the only one who's gone through an emotionally abusive relationship where you feel in depth validated, or it sometimes it's not in the words, and it takes a long time for people to realize what's happening to them. It's the roll of the eyes, it's the snide remarks, it's the belittling over a very long period of time, eroding your self-confidence as a person to the core that you don't trust your own decision process making is huge. And I'm into therapy as well, and I'm reading a really wonderful book called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature People. Right, so you I've had that when you were growing up, and the theory is that then you attract that in your life, which you need to heal. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I totally agree,
you
like
know,
100%. Yeah.
yeah. So it's monumental, and I hear your narrative that you don't want that to disempower you to say I was in an abusive, like emotionally abusive, like sort of passive, like you were there, you chose to be there, and it's a way of reframing it where you were for some sort of I feel like soul agreement that was that necessary because look at you now, you are Nebulous Niang, you are on stage killing it. Your 1 hour special itself just sold out like that. It was amazing. And so had you not gone through that, I would really question, like, did you ever think about that?
No, for real, yeah. I'm absolutely on the same page as you. I feel like also at this age, it's always like us, like women our age, who are like, oh my God, like I totally signed up for this before I was born. And like, it's like, there is no other reason we would have gone through all this shit. But so yeah, I mean, I'm very happy to like share like my own spiritual understanding of it, like where I'm at now.
Mm.
And yeah, and it's also not even, it's true, I would never have, probably never have done comedy, or even if I did, it wouldn't have the kind of power that it does.
Yeah.
Because I think, being funny is one thing.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, the type of comedy I am drawn to is the type that's very authentic and vulnerable. To me, that's what makes comedy have that punch. Because it's not really about haha making people laugh,
Yeah.
but it's about like kind of using the laughter as a way to like get across a message which maybe the audience was not entirely sh- was not something they entirely signed up for. But
Mm.
now that you've used laughter to kind of like get into their hearts, now they are open to receiving your message, and now they're open to seeing something which they never thought they might see, but now that they've heard it, they are inspired and uplifted. And that's that's why I do it. It's not about like standing out for standing out's sake, but it's for like it's for sharing and like for hopefully helping people feel less lonely, or feel like they have the courage to do something which they always wanted to.
I think growing up in the 90s in Singapore, because you've really hit the nail on the head, because it's difficult within this Asian context, I think, to stand up and say who you are out loud and proud, you know? So how did this Asian society, the Singapore sort of sometimes quite straitjacket, like, you know, culture, how did it make you see like yourself? How did it affect your own kind of lens? And how did that change over a long period of time to like 2024 now? You know, because whatever that you're talking about now is completely taboo. Definitely when we were young, like in the 90s, it's much more open now, but still, we've got a lot of catching up to do.
I mean, it was like a perfect storm, right? Because, okay, it was not just like Singapore in the 90s, but also the 90s. Like, even if you're not talking about Singapore, even talking about America in the 90s, which you understand through like pop culture and
Mm,
media and TV,
mm,
which was what? The only thing that people had to watch in the
yeah,
90s.
yeah.
And we all watched the same thing. We all watched Friends at like 9 o'clock on Channel 5, you know what I mean? Even if you were American watching Friends, you
Yeah,
also would not feel like it's okay to be gay or
yeah.
it's okay to
True,
not be white. You know what I mean?
true, true.
It
Yeah,
was not just a Singapore thing, but
yeah.
being in Singapore, it kind of like compounded everything. So I
Mm,
feel like in the 90s, um, media representation was very important, to influencing people's views as it is now. But look at the level of diversity we had then. We didn't, right? So I remember being very influenced by pop culture from the West,
yeah.
back then. And just watching any TV show, not just Friends, right? I felt like the only valid way to be is white and straight, and that's the only way to be happy,
Like
right?
Barbie, like Barbie.
like
Absolutely.
like Barbie, not
Yeah,
just white, but like blonde and blue eyed and stuff
yeah.
like that.
That's
So
the
things have
perfect
changed
life.
so much.
And living in Beverly Hills 90210. Yeah, basically.
And like yeah, so I even when they did show lesbian representation, and I do talk about this in my set, right? Even when they did show it in the 90s, the relationships were like doomed. Like someone would die, someone was like a witch, someone was crazy. And the messaging is all just like, okay, they're hot, but you're gonna die. Right? And so it's like, okay, I
You're
didn't so
watching the witches or something? What was this?
the wishes.
There was this like a 90s show with like this.
Buffy.
Yeah, yeah, Buffy the Vampire.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
like Willow was gay, and then she had like a lesbian girlfriend, and they, I think like one of them honestly really went crazy and tried to destroy the world.
Mm,
So that's what you get for being a lesbian.
yeah, naughty, naughty. You did. It's like, yeah, and I find that being a gay mom, right? You're not just like having to come out. And then you're also, I know you're in an interracial queer relationship, which you have spoken about, which is quite interesting. I will not spoiler alert, but it's really quite funny and you presented in your set. But it surely must come with challenges because you're kind of like there's so many boundaries that you're breaking here. I mean, how do you navigate those things and then stay true to like who you are and not have people also slap labels on you and that sort of thing, and having to define yourself within a pigeonhole and a pigeonhole.
No, that's a great question. So like I feel like our relationship is just all the layers of minorities that you could find. So like we're not only lesbians. I'm Chinese. She is Malay.
Okay.
And I'm also like older, and she's younger.
Wow.
And like so when like so my joke, right, is like when
Yeah.
people see us together, they honestly feel like they're like, what is this auntie doing, like sexually abusing her maid? You know what I mean? And like I get that all the time. Like even it's like it's so ludicrous, but it is like a thing, right? And instead of pretending it's not and like, oh my god, that is so shameful, let's laugh about it.
Mm.
Because that's when you release all the tension, right? While still bringing attention to what should we pay attention to. So like honestly, all of the stories which I tell after the show, some people are like, "That's a joke, right? Like that didn't actually happen, but it did. Like I couldn't even make it up if I tried." I mean, there's even, and I think the tricky part, like, there's me being choosing to be like vulnerable and authentic and honest and all that stuff, and then there's my partner, my girlfriend, my wife. I think of her as my wife.
Oh.
But then there's our kids, right? And I think the kids should have a say in how to present it as well. Like when their friends come over, I always tell them, look, my girlfriend's going to be at home. Like, you don't have to introduce her as anything other than for what you're comfortable with. I'll be like, just call her your friend. It's fine. I totally understand if you don't want to share with your friends that way. It's fine, because some people will judge, and maybe it's not even the kids judging. It's always the parents who are judging. The kids are like slay queen, but like it's
Wait, it literally happened. You must explain. It was so funny when you did the joke on yourself, which is also not just a joke, it's real, right?
It's 100%. I mean, it's reality. Like in fact, some of the friends, they themselves might be exploring their own, or like more aware of these things, and they themselves are like, "Hey, your mothers are so cool. Like, my mother say cannot." It's like, okay, your mother saying you cannot is like gonna solve everything, right?
Actually said
So I think
queen to you. They went
no,
slay
okay, I mean,
queen.
she didn't literally say that. Like, for the sake of a joke, I gotta say, say things in a certain way. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I do feel like it's better if we are authentic and then just let the cards fall where they fall, while also not like infringing on someone else's comfort zone
Yeah.
too much,
Dicey because
Yeah.
you're a parent, right? It's dicey. And what other parents look, definitely how they judge or whether they want your daughters to hang out with their, children because of your lifestyle or their perceived lifestyle. What they judge is right or wrong. I mean, I think it's a lot that you have to kind of navigate and also be okay with. And your daughters will definitely have to grow up in a different way to widen their lens and to decide like who they are. And,
Yeah.
and
Also, I find it very funny when people, not you, but people like to use the term like, gay lifestyle. But like it's not more of a lifestyle than like anything else that anyone else does,
you're
right?
like wearing feather boas and you're like dancing
Yeah.
in your living
No,
room.
even just
Gay.
like send your kids to 1 million enrichment classes lifestyle,
Yeah.
or like all use your phones at the dinner table lifestyle. Like that is a lifestyle too, but people don't call them out on it.
Yeah.
It's a choice as well.
I feel actually, can I let you in on a secret? I slightly digress. I feel morally superior when I did little Peppa Pig books and they're very small and they're like pocket size and they're very thin. And I bought a whole set. And so they're easy to put in my bag. And when I, go to the restaurants with my children, I would sit there and I'll read them Peppa Pig book because it's really small, right? And to entertain them because they're like making a lot of noise. And I would feel morally superior to those who are showing them screen. Doesn't matter. People compete and they compare on all levels. It just so happened that, this is what you've chosen and it looks different. But everything, if you wanted to pick on it, you can be critical of everything, right? I mean,
Right,
don't judge
exactly.
me there.
Yeah.
Not perfect, but I felt very pleased with myself when I did that.
No, I mean, you should be proud of yourself because you're like making that effort to show them a different type of connection, which is not all that common these days.
They
Yeah.
don't get
And
screen time when they eat. And if they kick up a fuss, I let them kick up a fuss. I never give in, especially in public, because I feel like once you lose that battle, I mean, my kids are a lot smaller, 6 and 4. So, it's different if you have a 10-year-old or, a tween or teen. I feel
oh
it's
no,
a
I
bit
mean they still lose
worried.
it, yeah.
Have you, sorry, what did you say?
No, they still lose it. Like they just lose it in a different way at different ages.
Oh dear. Um, I've got that to look forward to. I feel like, are there people who come up to you after the show? Because obviously what you're doing is you're giving yourself permission to be you, which would definitely help if someone's going through the same thing in different form that they feel that they can give themselves permission to. Like, have you had people come up to you after the show where they've shared certain things which you feel like this is worth it?
Yeah, I mean, people they do often come up and tell me that, I'm okay, not often, but I remember the ones who do. They tell me, that I'm inspiring or I'm brave, or they tell me indirectly, like they share their own story, which has like some similarities. But basically, if I hadn't shared, then they wouldn't have like had anyone to come up to and share as well. So, and actually, that's what is gratifying for me in doing it. And even if nobody comes up, or even if they come up and just say, good job, I really like what you did, you don't have to say more than that. Like, I feel like that's enough. Or actually, they don't even have to come up and say something. Like, as I feel like not everyone is so expressive or so. Maybe they also haven't quite processed it, but I do feel like I've made some kind of difference to them in at least some small way, and that's really why it's so satisfying to do this.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's astounding. You're using humor to cope with these personal struggles and empowering others who, might be going through similar challenges. I mean, I've seen the shows where you sold out, and I've seen the applause, and like it's just you're cracking. Like it's so funny, everybody's just like the points when you hit that high note, you've got a really nice rhythm to what you do. And obviously it has taken a lot of time to craft its writing, isn't it? That your craft and your writing and then your personality to deliver it. How do you actually use humor in that way? Like how would you describe your humor?
Ooh, how would I describe my humor? I would say it's pretty sarcastic. That's my tendency, right? Like I always have that, smart ass kind of like
Yeah.
tendency. And
No, but
um
it's intelligent though. I would say it's intelligent and
okay, intelligent. Okay, you
yeah,
said it now.
yes. Intelligently sarcastic. Not
Yeah,
um
I think I've been told it's a bit more on the I've been told I try very hard to be like logical in my jokes.
okay.
So I think that's a bit of my whole like academic background like kicking in, like I have to make sense. Like not all comics like feel like they have to make sense, but to me it's like there's always that if A equals B, then B must lead to C, like that kind of
Yeah.
thing. And yeah, I've also been told that I am a little bit perverse.
Yes,
Like 变态,
that comes
which I
through.
embrace.
Oh, can we also then talk
Yes.
about your name? Because I wanted to touch on that. So you gave yourself this stage name, Nebulous Niang.
Yes.
Niang, can you just tell us, break down what it actually means?
Okay. So Nebulous Niang, I chose it because I wanted a stage name that alliterated. Because I love stand-up comedy and I follow so many comedians, and for the life of me I can never remember their names, even if they've had like Netflix specials. So I'm like, if I can't remember the name of like a super famous person, I better like at least try and make myself more memorable by having a alliterative stage name. I kind of took reference from Fucker Fuzz actually,
Yeah, yeah,
although he doesn't call himself that anymore.
it doesn't.
But like, if FF works, why can't NN work? Right?
Mm.
And then sounds like Nene, which is like appeals to me. Which is like all I am about. Like I emblazon it across my Nene. Um But okay, seriously, like Nebulous Niang. I like the term Niang, right? Because Niang, in Chinese, literally is Niang, like mother, which I actually am a mom. I remind myself sometimes I actually have given birth to two children. So I literally am a mother and I can give that perspective in my jokes. But at the same time, Niang is also something which, a Chinese term, right? To reference a feminine man, like he's so Niang,
Mm.
right? And I feel like I am both a mom as well as an effeminate man. Because like for me, how I process my whole like sexuality is like I do think like a man. It's just that, I scream at cockroaches and stuff like that. So I just feel like I am two things at once and it's also not really either of them. And so it's like a nebulous concept.
I see. I like it. It's so much. It's like slow-mo sexual, like that writing, the crafting of who you are, that kind of the way that you approach it is very thoughtful, and very intelligent, and I
Thank
love
you.
the thinking behind that. And because when you said perverse, I thought about Niang. I thought, oh, I must follow up with this. When you said that the jokes are a bit perverse as well, and then it kind of ties in with your whole persona, like Niang Niang in the period films, right? And
Yes.
like so, it sounds like you have so much fun with this, getting to know yourself through comedy. So,
Yeah.
what
It's like a whole like I guess you could say it's a crafted persona, but it's very much my essence.
but you also have like a day job, which we're not going to talk about, but it's a very proper, you come from a very proper background, and I think that's what's really fascinating about you is that, background are like properly boring. I'm not throwing shade on, but people fit certain molds for a certain reason because it's true. And you really, I think if you did a comic about your double life, it'll be that, right? Suddenly you're at the desk and then suddenly at night you'll go charging into like comedy clubs and then you would change into this completely different person. Are you like that in meeting rooms? Do you like just,
No, you know what? You know what? When you said the thing about the double life, I
yeah.
was reminded that I have always felt this way, like even since I was a kid.
Wow.
Because there's like the proper me and then there's like the real me.
Okay.
And I remember that I got into the college that I got into. I got to study in the US. In the US, you have to write like these admissions essays, right?
Wow.
Like yeah, you have to like write a personal statement,
Yeah.
and because I hadn't done all the things that like people usually do, like become like the captain of like the netball team or like the head of the prefect board. Like I had done none of that. I literally just like fucked around my whole like secondary school life. So my essay was literally, it started with, I have a secret to tell you, I am leading a double life. And I think
Wow.
that's what got me in, because like no one else would have started the essay that way, right?
Wow. Wait,
Because even back then, I felt like I was leading a double life. Because on one side of things, I'm like a good girl. I do the right thing. I study. I get straight A's and blah. But on the other side of things, like when I'm free, I like I was in a band. I was in like an all girl like rock band in a JC. And I did my web comic, and I did all these like things which are like not proper.
wow.
So now that you mentioned it, I remembered that, and I think it's maybe I've just always had this
Mm.
always felt like I've had two selves. Even the
Mm.
comic I drew was about myself and like the cooler self which I wanted to be.
Wow.
So yeah, you're making me reflect on a lot of things.
So, which uni was that? That could you share with
Oh,
us?
I went to Yale. I went to Yale
Wow.
University.
Means. That's why it makes sense now. I'm glad I asked you. So that's the thing, people don't get it, right? So your life is the juxtaposition of what you're doing is insane, right? The expectation of like Ivy League student, then you have like, I'm not gonna talk about your job, but you very straight laced, like, you are like, you would be the vision of that perfect Singaporean child. Um, room for success. Um, Yet there is that part of you that's trying to break free, right? And I feel like it's an amalgamation of two. Like both things can be true. Um, and it feels like your essence, the inner being of who you are, like it's breaking out, trying to have that voice from a difficult situation that you broke out from. So, what advice would you give someone who's trying to do that? Like embrace their true self. They feel like they're in a difficult situation. They may not be from Yale. Not everybody
Oh.
can be from Yale, but they've got like if you're from Yale, you can do whatever you want. You can go and pole dance. You can do whatever you're
I
really
could, I
legit.
could.
You legitimize yourself already. Wow.
Wow. What advice I would give to someone? Whew, that's heavy responsibility. I would say, um, you are not alone. Trust yourself, and the life that is in store for you is may seem unimaginable right now, but it's completely in your hands.
That was awesome. And how did you turn things around? What was it? Was it that you're such a hard worker? You're obviously a hard worker. That's why you're in a position, you got straight A's, it didn't drop from the sky. So is it working very, very hard at uncovering who you are? Then, going for stand up and writing at the rate that you did in and completing that 1 hour in such a short time is not easy. Like people don't get it. Like you don't, even when you have a 5 minute on stage, your 5 minute might suck. And it might take you a few months to get a very solid 5 minute, let alone a 1 hour. So is it just because you're very, very hardworking?
I think I'm just like naturally talented. No, no,
Preach.
okay, no, seriously, seriously, no, seriously. I never thought of it as like hard work.
Mm.
I just saw it as like it just came. It's almost okay, I don't mean to like overstate this, but it was never hard work. Like I just knew I had something to say and it just comes.
Wow.
It just came, and I guess it's more about not so much hard work but the conviction that I have something valuable to share. Yeah. And I mean, I've always tried to, I always joke that stand-up comedians, we are pretty self-centered people, right? Like, I mean, why do we do stand-up instead of improv? We're not into teamwork, we're into like hogging the mic, right? But honestly, it may be my story which I want to share. Yes, there's that, like it is about me. But it's also not 100% about me. But like because I've been through this, I can share these experiences in a way that's accessible and fun to people. And then it can be about them, right? I feel like when you have that kind of mindset that you're not just doing it for yourself, but like you have a conviction that it's going to be valuable to others and help others in their lives, it will come very naturally. It's not hard work at all.
Do you feel like you're channeling when you're writing? Are you just channeling? Are you like a conduit? Like it's coming to you and you just have to make space to sit there and what do you do? Or do you type?
I would, I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah,
about, but
yeah.
like I haven't experienced it that way.
Okay.
But what I can say is that when it's time to write, I will write. Like it will just come. And I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect the way it comes down. I mean, it still takes a lot of like practice and tweaking, but like there's never any shortage of ideas. Like the ideas just like come all the time, and it's just a matter of like, making sure to take note of them so that when it's time to like look at all your notes and like make it into a proper set, it's all there. Like there's never nothing to talk about. Yeah.
And how often were you hitting the clubs to get material? I'm very interested in your process because there might be some people who are, listening to this, they're in the start of their journey or, they want to aspire to their one up. People who are just like curious about this whole process, it looks like magic because you're just like having a chat and it looks like it's super, natural, but people really don't have much concept of what it takes to crack a 1 hour. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
that's where you're going at
Yeah. So
stuff.
I think in the beginning, I was really hitting the clubs like every single time. I think at the time it was mainly, the Lemon Stand has the weekly open mics on.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just Tuesdays. And then there were some other clubs, like there was East Coast Comedy on Mondays. So there was the Mondays, there was the Tuesdays, and then there were the ad hoc ones that people organize. And then after a while, they also ask you if you want to go out on like weekends. So I was basically doing it like 2 to 3 times a week at one point. And I'm not sure I was doing it more to gain my confidence because in the very beginning, I wasn't like all out like I'm gay and all this stuff. I was still scared, right? I was still scared. So I was more like gaining my stage confidence and more like technical aspects of it and just talking about safer topics like, oh my God, I'm like 40 years old, I'm balding, I have back pain, like that kind of very safe topic. Um, yeah, and I think it was also getting used to the feeling of being in the comedy scene, which was very different from anything that I ever experienced. Um, it's a lot of guys. Like I've never been in a scene where there's a lot of guys. Even at my corporate job, it's a lot of women, and it's a very different type of arena.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of like being in this very male dominated
Yeah.
kind of environment, getting used to it. And I remember in my first 1 or 2 years, I feel like I spent more effort like just grappling with the how to deal with these people than like actually working on my comedy.
Mm. Mm.
And I think I needed a while to like get that out of my system and then realize that I don't really need to really prove myself to anybody.
Mm.
Also because along the way, I think there's been a lot more diversity in the scene. Like now we have a lot of like women and queer friendly mics, you know, like Xiao Boss, like Lady Boss, like
Mm.
what Cheryl Chana
Yeah.
has organized on a few occasions. And so it was all of that like stage time and the grind of it, for me at least, it was not it was yes, it was about developing my material,
Mm.
but it was mainly about like being confident in who I was and
Mm.
seeing value in myself as a comedian in the
Mm.
scene.
Do you remember that first time where you popped your open mic virginity on stage?
Okay, because today is the podcast virginity
Yeah.
popping, and then I
So we're
no, I remember 100%.
yeah.
I remember telling Lemon
Yeah.
from the Lemon Stand. I was just like, I'm gonna do this, and he was backstage with me, and he was like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "No," right? And he was like, "Oh, that's strange. Usually people are nervous," and
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm not."
Wow.
I yeah.
How are
So
you not nervous on the first time that you go up on and to what were your jokes?
it was just like something really generic, and I think there was a joke which I don't do anymore, which is me singing the modem song. Like remember in the 90s when you dialed up to the
Yeah.
internet, there was
Yeah.
like the
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's very good. Yeah, yeah. How do you do that? That's very
yeah, yeah.
good.
So okay, anyway, so that's the reason I don't do that joke anymore. But like I remember I did that,
Yeah.
and like as well as other things. And I don't know why I wasn't okay. I was not that I wasn't nervous. I was like mildly nervous, but I was not like I'm gonna die. I just felt like um I knew I was gonna do stand up. So like it's just the first day of the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's very interesting. Is most people would be yeah very nervous the first time. Like I know I was, but like I didn't know where my boundaries were. I was polar opposite. I was talking about my medical examination, and I was like, oh, people do that, right? Stand up, they talk about body parts, and I'm talking. And it was so embarrassing. Yeah, I kind of had to learn how to like bring it in, but and where the boundaries were. But I guess this is encouraging for people who want to attempt doing stand up and also to help themselves like figure things out like in their life. I do agree with you. It's extremely therapeutic, being and when you name something, you tame it, right? When you name it, you tame it. And when you stand on stage and you have a voice for your experiences and you can tell a room full of people, it really gives you power in terms of like not letting the stuff affect you that much anymore, own you if you were like by yourself and not able to like tell people. First you
Yeah.
tell it to your friends, then you go on stage and it's like a superpower, you know and has that helped with your own like mental health in terms of like gaining strength?
Yeah, for sure. I guess just being able to share these things which people usually do not want to talk about,
Yeah.
and not just for the sake of like shock value,
Mm,
but for the greater good,
yeah.
without overstating it, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, when you how do I say this? It's so boring to
Mm,
do the expected thing.
mm,
Like everyone knows what is expected of them. That's what most of life is about, right? Like the 23.5 hours of a day when you're not on stage, when you're in that like work meeting or like strangers outside, you know exactly what you are not allowed to talk about. And
mm,
that's why it's so boring.
mm,
So I feel like that's the role of stand up. Like that's the power of it. Like to say what no one everyone knows shouldn't be said, but not for the sake of shocking, but
Mm.
because there's some value in like just releasing that. That's where the humor comes from. It's from the release.
I got it. I got it. Okay. So we've come to that point of the show. I'm so grateful to have you here. And since we've got 2025 ahead of us, what's your wish for the year? Like, what do you wish for
Ooh.
yourself and the world for 2025?
Wow. Another big one.
Just to wrap things up.
Well, for myself, I am looking forward to really challenging myself in the coming year, pushing my comedy to like new places. I'm hoping to do more hosting. So hosting would be more kind of like ad hoc or like impromptu kind of responses, which has been my fear
Mm,
because I've always been very, I write my script and I stick to it and I
mm,
practice it.
mm,
And now I just want to be more impromptu.
mm.
So I'm gonna host some shows. I've signed up to host some shows. So hopefully I do that well and also help people feel happy
Beautiful.
during the show instead of like insulting them. I also want to take my show, my 1 hour comedy show, Slomosexual International.
Mm.
So I do plan to go to the Edinburgh Fringe in August 2025. Yeah, I'm gonna write out the submission soon.
Fingers
And
crossed.
I do want to thank you.
Yeah.
And I do want to perform in other countries too. So like this year I got to perform in Mumbai
Mm.
and to headline in Thailand.
Beautiful.
And next year I want to try the Australian market. Like I will be, in Perth, I'll be in Melbourne, and I also might likely make a trip to San Francisco just to see what it's like there and maybe make some friends. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a great year for me to expand my horizons further, and for the world.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Watch out, world. It sounds so exciting. I'm so excited for you. All these
Huh.
amazing things happening in a span of 2.5 years, that transformation, and you've got you're bursting out your inner Clark Kent and you're going, hey, and I really pray that, you amalgamate who you are, and that there needs no that there doesn't need to be any separation from the true you, and that sort of becoming and unbecoming of the double life, becoming like two become one. Like
And to
that.
become
Ah.
one.
So amazing. Well, thank you so much, Nebulous Niang, for joining me today on the Gratitude Show and sharing your journey in stand up. It is truly inspirational to see how you have transformed your life, turned your personal struggles around to become an even more fearless, powerful woman standing on stage. Hear me roar. So good luck for 2025.
Thank you so much, Greta, and same to you.
Thank you.